This is major history, starting off the new year of 2025 uh, with them golden slippers. Well, in Philadelphia, they have a tradition every New Year's Day of bringing in a new year with the Mummers Parade, where the revelers in their New Year's finery and costumes strut down streets of Center City, Broad Street, down to Washington Avenue, carrying on a tradition that's been on going on for over a century. And according to whatever is the longest running, oldest New Year's, longest running parade in the country. And unknown known to many, their unofficial song of the Mummers Parade, Odom Golden Slippers, was actually penned by an African American, Mr. James A. Blanchard, who was an African American composer and songwriter of the 19th century. And he was directly inspired to write this song, Odom Golden Slippers, based upon a Negro spiritual by the Fifth Jubilee Singers out of Tennessee. So Odom Golden Slippers has been a standard tune for the Mummers down through the years. Also, Mr. Bland also wrote the song "Carry Me Back to Old Virginia," which was a state song for the state of Virginia up until be around 1997. So Odom Golden Slippers has found itself in a standard in other venues as well. And bluegrass has been played in by bluegrass bands and country bands, and has been interpreted by many singers. And this is an example of cross-pollination of cultures that's been transpired through the years, through the decades since the arrival of African Americans in this North America since 1690. So James A. Bland has been one of the originators of the so-called minstrel style of song and culture has been adopted as the minstrel style of showmanship, which was adopted in the late 19th century. Many of the performers choosing to perform in blackface while performing Odom Slippers and other songs by him and other African American composers. So this has been acknowledged uh, recently that the origins and the composition of many of these records, these songs were originated by African American composers and songwriters who had the origins in the Negro spirituals of the 19th century passed down after slavery and down through the years. So this should be widely acknowledged by everybody, I would assume, and there should be a recognition for these composers as such for their contributions to American culture in this year of 2025. Thank you. Yes, this is major history, and I was just thinking and considering some rather troubling historical parallels relating to the recent awful tragedy on a New York subway about a week ago, where a person in transit on a subway, apparently a homeless, was accosted and set alight by a migrant from Guatemala who was shortly apprehended on the scene, and he has been subsequently charged with first and second degree murder as well as the crime of arson. Um, the historical parallel I found interesting back in the early 1930s, around 1933, as Adolf Hitler had assumed or was about to assume power in Germany after he had been elected. A Dutch national by the name of, I believe his name was Van der Lubbe, was arrested for setting fire to the German parliament called the Reichstag, and he was charged with various crime, arson, and sabotage, and was executed, given capital punishment for his alleged crimes. Most observers in the aftermath believe this was not a random act of arson, that Mr. Van der Lubbe was put up to that crime, that attack, by the Nazis themselves as the means, the vehicle by which they could consolidate power, eliminate their threats, their rivals and enemies, principally the communists, and demonize their opponents. So what I find is very troubling that these supporters of Donald Trump, the MAGA people, has jumped on this attack in the subway as a clear example of the crimes and threats of migrants, illegal migrants, and as portrayed them as many of them as a mob of arsonists, murderers, lowlifes, and the sort of undesirables. Now I find it very interesting that this subway attack has come just before Donald J. Trump is about to assume power, resume office on January the 20th, and will no doubt use this particular instance as a very potent propaganda tool against the threat of illegal migrants. So while I'm not saying that the MAGA people have put this individual up to this crime as the Nazis may have did in the 1930s, I would not completely exclude that possibility. And I think the authorities should include this as a possibility, as a line of inquiry into the investigation as to what motivated him to do this. Other than being a psychotic or maniac, it is very troubling because I couldn't find no possible ulterior motive for him doing a crime such as this. But it's a theory of speculation on my part. Only thing I'm saying, this should not be excluded completely as a line of inquiry, as a possibility that may have motivated him to commit this crime. Thank you. Yes, major history, and I would like to speak briefly on some interesting developments as regard the aspirations and plans of the president-elect Donald J. Trump, which emerged in the news recently. Uh, Trump has proposed again purchasing the territory of Greenland from Denmark, as it would be very beneficial to the United States strategic goals and aims. It reminds me of a book that I heard of on the BBC News Network. African migrant from country in Africa, either Ghana or Nigeria, some country in West Africa, decided to, because he was so enamored of the culture of the native people of Greenland, decided to pack up his bags and relocate there, which he subsequently did. And as far as is known, as the first African to migrate to Greenland. He was there a number of years, possibly a couple of decades. And eventually he packed up his bags and moved to Europe, but he published a book called An African in Greenland. So it brings to mind what came in the news the other day regarding Donald J. Trump. He proposed to buy or purchase territory of Greenland. And Greenland is a misnomer, I think, because from what I understand, Greenland is anything but green, except the most southernmost part of the island, which is in fact the largest island in the world. It's a very inhospitable, forbidding place. Um, Large parts of it will make Alaska seem tropical in comparison. So will Donald Trump be able to pull us off when he assumes office in January, possibly, as he is partnered with Mr. Elon Musk, world's richest businessman. He has a lot of venture capital that he can invest. And I believe they're both of the school of thought that says everybody has a price. And they will proceed on that assumption to achieve their goal to get Greenland, which is a vast territory, uh, larger than Alaska area-wise, and compares favorably with the Louisiana Purchase, which is the largest acquisition of territory by the United States up to this time. So, will it happen? I think with Mr. Elon Musk and the United States government and with his untold billions of dollars in venture capital at his disposal, is a distinct possibility that it could happen. We'll just have to wait and see, or whether this is just bluster or a publicity stunt on his part. And but if it does happen, we might see, ironically, a second African in Greenland, Elon Musk, if it happens. Yes, this is major history, and according to news reports, President Biden has commuted the death sentences of nearly all the prisoners sentenced to death on the federal system, the federal death penalty, 37 with 3 exceptions. Among the 3 exceptions are Dylan Roof, the young white man that murdered the black parishioners in a church in Charleston, South Carolina, as well as the anti-Semitic murderer who shot up the Tree of Life synagogue several years ago in Pittsburgh, and also one of Boston Marathon bombers. So I have mixed feelings about this development, while I do accept the fact that it is his presidential privilege to do so, uh, because he might have some ambivalence about the death penalty, and he acted according to his conscience. And of course, commutation to a life sentence without parole in no way equates a pardon, because these individuals will still be accountable for their actions, or have been held accountable for their reprehensible actions, which involve the taking of many cases of, if not all cases, of innocent life. So that out of respect to the wishes of the relatives of the victims of these criminals, a pardon would be, of course, out of the question. I have mixed feelings of because my own limited connection, having lived for many years in Germantown, one of the individuals who have been since commuted by President Biden was Mr. Gaboni Savage. And Mr. Savage lived up to his name by the series of infamous murders that he perpetrated or his cohorts perpetrated in the Philadelphia area, in particular Germantown. So while I felt that he should face the maximal penalty for his actions, uh, I'll have to accept the fact that he will be in prison and he will never see the streets as a free man again. And by the way, a lot of these individuals are held at supermax prisons, of which the most famous is in Colorado. And we all know the supermax prison is no walk in the park. They're under maximum security at 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And held basically underground for the duration of this sentence, which is, I think, quite appropriate for these individuals. So while I have some misgivings about it, uh, I am thankful that he did not commute the sentence of Mr. Dylan Roof or these two other individuals. And I might not agree with a lot of things that President-elect Donald Trump has to say, but one of the things he has promised to do is to clear out the federal death row sentenced prisoners. So if he does and follow up and keeps his word, I have no problem with that at all. We'll just have to wait and see that he actually keeps his word as he has promised. Come next year. Thank you. Yes, major history. You might say I'm doing a follow-up report on the podcast I did a couple of days ago about the shooting or execution, if you want to call it that, of CEO Brian Thompson uh, recently in New York. The suspected assailant, Mr. Mangione, quite paradoxically, has been lauded in some quarters as some type of hero or savior of some kind for the crime he's alleged to have committed. Find this very interesting, but not surprising. It goes back to that saying that I've heard years ago that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Some quarters he's seen as a villain and a cold-blooded murderer. In other places is a righteous vigilante meting out street justice to an unsavory or a character, Mr. Thompson. Uh, as a matter of fact, this is not a unknown phenomenon, but the really unparalleled wave of sympathy for an alleged assassin is basically unheard of. Um, I believe it was a French writer was quoted as saying, I believe his name is Balzac, that behind every great fortune is a great crime or a great felony. And some individuals may have looked at this uh, individual CEO as being guilty of some great crime and alleged to amass a considerable fortune as a result. I'm not in a position to say one way or the other, but their sympathy for Mr. Mangione seemed to have brought that saying into focus in my mind, at least. Uh, Mr. Mangione, up to this time, to my knowledge, has been charged with murder in the second degree, not the first. Now, this is a curious development uh, because on New York statutes and laws, uh, his alleged offense doesn't meet the criteria for a first degree offense. It has to be a law enforcement officer, uh, be a contract murderer, and a few other things, which this case does not merit first degree application. Also, it probably doesn't qualify as a hate crime. However, there's maybe one possible loophole which may raise it up to first degree. Uh, Possible as an act of domestic terrorism. If it is found that Mr. Mangione's offense meets that criteria, it may be upgraded to that potential first degree. We'll just have to wait and see. But a lot of people have been outraged by his alleged offense, not only because it was a high-profile character, high-profile person, CEO of a major healthcare provider corporation. That's the very public nature of it. And those of us who live in the inner city, and we have reports of similar crimes on a daily basis. It reminds me of a saying by the radical H. Rap Brown, violence is American as cherry pie. And just bringing into focus that particular saying, more so than any crime in my mind recently. So we'll see how this plays out in the coming weeks and months. uh, the status of this individual, but as I said before, one man's terrorist can be another man's hero. Apparently, this is seemed to be the case. Thank you.